In this lesson, we will read a poem titled Sea Fever and answer 2 short written response questions. You can find this reading in the video description linked for free. And I will begin. Sea Fever. I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea in the sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. And the wheels kick, and the wind's song, and the white sails shaking, and a gray mist on the sea's face, and a gray dawn breaking. I must go down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call, and a clear call that may not be denied. And all I ask is a windy day, with the white clouds flying, and the flung spray, and the blown spume, and the seagulls crying. I must go down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy life, to the gull's way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife. And all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover, and quiet sleep, a sweet dream, when the long trick's over. Now, this poem is in first-person narrative, and we have our speaker who clearly likes the sea, which this poem, this would be a part 2 lesson, because the first story that we have read was the excerpt from The Open Boat. And what we would want to do here is we will connect Sea Fever with Open Boat in the next lesson to write an essay. But first, we want to answer our written response questions for Sea Fever. So, if you want to take some time to answer these 2 questions, you will have: how do lines 5 and 6 of Sea Fever support a theme of the poem? Use 2 details from the poem to support your response. And our second question will be: what do lines 7 through 11 reveal about the speaker in Sea Fever? Also using 2 details from the poem to support your response. So answer those 2 questions and come back to our video. Now that we've returned, I have here the start of our answer. How do lines 5 and 6 of Sea Fever support a theme of the poem? And here I will say, if we go back to lines 5 and 6, 5 and 6 is saying here, I must go down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call, and a clear call that may not be denied. So you can have several themes here, okay? If he has a call to go to the sea, you could say that the ocean is a place of rest, relaxation. Well, it sounds like he might be actually working. We're not really sure what this person is doing. He asks for a tall ship and a star to steer her by. So we could assume he's either looking for work on the sea, or he's just a speaker of leisure that enjoys boating and living his life on the open seas. So we could say, I want to say that the narrator loves the sea. So you could also put here, and then if I want to use a quote, I might use a direct quote for this one. So I could say, the narrator says that the call of the running tide is a wild call and a clear call that may not be denied. So for the answer here, I've added a quote. The narrator says, the call of the running tide is a wild call and a clear call that cannot be denied. And then after using a quote, and notice here I have a citation. Test citations don't have to be too specific. If you put in parentheses, you got it from lines 5 through 6. That's really what we would need to do here. And a period after the parentheses. And then we have, this shows. Now, after you use a quote, you always want to explain why you put your quote there. What does the quote show? Because you can plop a quote anywhere, really. But if you don't explain why you used your quote, it can look very awkward in your writing. So here I say, this shows the narrator has a strong urge to visit the ocean. The speaker also talks about loving the waves and the cries of the seagulls. Lines 5 and 6 support the theme of the poem because it shows that humans have a longing desire to be near the ocean due to its vast beauty. So here I closed it. Notice that my first introduction sentence and my last closing sentence are pretty similar here, worded in the same way. I just worded it slightly different. Because here I say specific to the narrator's love of the sea, and then I reiterate at the end that I believe the theme here would be all humans have a longing desire to be near the sea. Of course, this wouldn't really be all humans, because I don't think that the people in the open boat have a longing desire to be near the sea after their ordeal. But for this specific poem, we can be general and say that humans have a longing desire to be near the ocean. Now, for our second question here, we can say here, lines 7 through 11 reveal that the speaker feels compelled to spend his time at sea. It's really as simple as that, because lines 7 through 11 is just saying all the things he's asking for. All I ask is a windy day, white clouds flying, flung spray, blown spume, seagulls crying. I must go down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy life, to the gull's way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife. And all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover. He does seem like he wants some companionship, though. Not to be totally alone. But if we just want to answer the question here, we can say, he states, I'm using the direct quote again here, I must go down to the sea again. That's our line 5. This shows that the narrator cannot control his urge to be on the open seas. The speaker also refers to themselves as a vagrant, which implies they do not have a home on land. Lines 7 through 11 reveal the speaker is someone who prefers to spend their time on the water rather than land. So I use, the quote from I use this one from line 5. Technically, I wanted the ones from lines 7 through 11, but line 5 does introduce it. Oh, wait, actually, I must go down to the seas again. This was in 9. He repeated it. So this repetition, we could use that. I just realized, wait, we could say this. So I say here, this shows that the narrator cannot control his urge to be on the open seas. So I could actually put here, the repetition used by the author shows how the narrator cannot control his urge to be on the open seas. The speaker also refers to himself as a vagrant, which implies they do not have a home on land. Lines 7 through 11 reveal the speaker as someone who prefers to spend their time on land or on the water rather than land. So I've also used another term here, repetition. When you see a line in a poem repeated multiple times, you would say that is repetition, and it shows importance. So the fact that that line was repeated 3 times in the poem shows that this narrator cannot control his urge to visit the ocean. Whatever it is he may be doing there, whether it be working or spending his leisure time, the narrator in Sea Fever is a big fan of the ocean. And those would be our 2 written response questions for Sea Fever. And in our next lesson, we're going to take our story from the open boat, and we will write an essay talking about how the different viewpoints towards the oceans can be seen in the open boat and Sea Fever. And boy, oh boy, they certainly have different perspectives, the narrator in the ocean boat and the narrator of Sea Fever.